Harrison Ford is willing to return as 1923's Jacob Dutton in Yellowstone. And it could actually work. Harrison Ford is willing to return as Jacob Dutton after 1923 Season 2. And it could genuinely work. The action star is a cinematic icon, known for his heroic roles in Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Blade Runner. While 1923 Season 2's finale seemingly shuttered Ford's role in the Prohibition-era saga, the Yellowstone prequels about the Dutton family will continue, and Ford could surely have a place there since his Jacob Dutton character, at 80 years old, is still alive at the end of 1923 Season 2. The final chapter of Taylor Sheridan's 1920s Yellowstone show saw Jacob maintain his stake in the Dutton Ranch, passing it to his nephew, Spencer Dutton, Brandon Sklenar. The war hero arrived just in time to win the family's war against Banner Creighton, Jerome Flynn, taking his men out at the train station in Livingston and the ranch before killing Donald Whitfield, Timothy Dalton, for an explosive finish. Spencer, too, could return in the next Yellowstone prequel, 1944, and appearances from actors like Ford and Sklenar after 1923 seem quite feasible. Per The Hollywood Reporter, Harrison Ford is willing to return to Yellowstone as Jacob Dutton. Speaking at a FIC event in Los Angeles, he said, "I'm still alive," of his 1923 character, and Ford joked that he would return if Taylor Sheridan asks nice. While Ford added that he has no idea what his plans are, speaking of what the Yellowstone executive producer will do after 1923, there's certainly a place for Ford in the follow-up to the 1920 show. Helen Mirren, who plays Jacob's wife, Cara Dutton, also said she's open to returning in the next segment. The Dutton family story will likely continue in a show that would pick up 20 years later amid the events of World War II, titled 1944. Spencer would presumably be running the ranch in the next chapter, raising the next generation of the Dutton family tree. Spencer's wife, Alexandra Dutton, Julia Schlapfer, delivered their baby in the finale just before her death, succumbing to hypothermia, but not before miraculously bearing a son named John. Her offspring appears to be John Dutton too, the link to Kevin Costner's Yellowstone character, and 1944 is primed to confirm the detail. Harrison Ford could return as Jacob Dutton in 1944, and there's no official report on 1923 ending, so his return in a potential 1923 Season 3 isn't off the table either. Still, Taylor Sheridan has said he envisioned 1923 as a two-part story, per Deadline. If 1923 Season 3 happened, then Jacob could return as the roughly 80-year-old man that we parted with in the finale. Still, Spencer Dutton's time jump in 1923 Season 2 shows Spencer's death 45 years later, offering a somewhat conclusive ending to the Prohibition-era story, even though the war hero's story would continue in 1944. Ultimately, the 1940s saga is the best place for Ford's return, and there are a few genuinely feasible options. The Yellowstone franchise is full of flashbacks that enrich the story, and Ford could return as Jacob Dutton in 1944 flashbacks that show what came next for the grandparents after 1923. Ford's return would be the perfect opportunity for Yellowstone to give Jacob Dutton a proper send-off, perhaps showing his death alongside Brandon Sklenar as Spencer, emulating the scene between Kevin Costner and Dabney Coleman as John Dutton Tiva in Yellowstone Season 2, which showed the latter's peaceful death. Per Variety, Brandon Sklenar is willing to return as Spencer Dutton in 1944, so a few flashbacks between the Duttons are possible. Alternatively, Ford could emerge in another Yellowstone show as a different character, with multiple upcoming spin-off shows in the works that would take place in modern times. Perhaps the most intriguing possibility is Ford returning as Dutton. not in a flashback, but as himself in 1944's present, as a 100-year-old Jacob, marking the oldest Dutton in history. Regardless, Harrison Ford's return could give Jacob Dutton a proper send-off, which is certainly warranted due to his memorable role in 1923. When Harrison Ford first stepped into the boots of Jacob Dutton in 1923, fans were cautiously optimistic. Could the legendary Indiana Jones and Star Wars icon truly anchor a gritty Western prequel in the Yellowstone universe? Not only did he prove capable, he elevated the entire narrative. Now, with whispers that Ford is open to returning as Jacob Dutton, the possibilities for Taylor Sheridan's ever-expanding Yellowstone saga are thrilling. And surprisingly, it could actually work, and work well. For starters, Ford's performance as Jacob was restrained, dignified, and worn with the weight of history. He wasn't just a cowboy on the frontier. He was a patriarch fighting for his family, his land, and a way of life eroding beneath his feet. His dynamic with Helen Mirren's Cara Dutton gave 1923 a Shakespearean gravitas. The idea that we might see more of that kind of storytelling, with Ford once again at the helm, is almost too good to pass up. At 82, Ford has nothing left to prove. Yet his interest in returning signals something deeper. Jacob Dutton isn't just a character, he's a legacy builder. The Dutton lineage that Kevin Costner's John Dutton fights for in the flagship series started with men like Jacob, whose choices shaped the very soil of Yellowstone Ranch. If Ford's back, it's not to ride into the sunset. It's to redefine the family's past with fresh, perhaps darker, strokes. But the real question is, how could it work? Well, even though 1923 only spanned one season, the timeline is fertile ground. The show left several storylines wide open. Spencer Dutton's fate, the fallout of Prohibition, tensions with rival ranchers, and the looming Great Depression. All of that could be revisited in a continuation, a second season, or even a surprise tie-in with the main Yellowstone series. Imagine this: a dual timeline arc where an older Jacob, perhaps narrating his past, or making one final stand for the land, crosses over into the modern Yellowstone universe. With Kevin Costner's exit leaving a void, the introduction of flashbacks or ancestral reflections could offer a fresh angle. Harrison Ford and John Dutton, two eras colliding, two legends intertwined through blood and soil. That kind of narrative symmetry could deepen the themes of legacy, duty, and sacrifice that Sheridan has always explored. There's also something poetic about Ford's return as a man from the past in a franchise obsessed with history. Yellowstone is not just about cattle and politics. It's about ghosts. Every Dutton has carried the weight of the generations before them. Ford's Jacob could become more than a historical character. He could become the conscience of the ranch itself. A haunting reminder. A spirit, even metaphorically, whispering guidance to his descendants. From a production standpoint, this return is more feasible than it seems. Ford has already proven his ability to handle the physical demands of a Western. And with today's filming technology, aging actors can be preserved, de-aged, or carefully edited to emphasize performance over action. More importantly, Ford's Jacob Dutton is not required to leap off moving trains or swing from vines. He's a man of stoic leadership, commanding with his voice, his eyes, and his history. It's cinematic gold for an actor of Ford's caliber. And let's not forget the fans. Harrison Ford has long been Hollywood royalty, but his turn as Jacob brought him a new wave of admiration. Longtime Yellowstone fans appreciated the consistency, while newcomers were drawn in by the star power and Ford's unexpectedly soulful portrayal. Bringing him back would not only generate buzz, it would bridge the Yellowstone timeline more meaningfully than any new spin-off ever could.